So while the porridge is cooking, we're going to sit down and have just an amazing conversation with somebody I believe is going to be a big part of this scene for many years to come. This is just such a unique opportunity to have the privilege to sit down with an artist on the cusp of greatness. And I think it's going to be a very short time before she is sitting down with people far more prestigious and dignified and recognizable than myself. So I'm very, very fortunate and very grateful for the generosity of Cariies' time. And I'm just stoked to get answers to some of the questions that some of the things I think about in regards to her approach to songwriting, her creative process, her ambitions, her what she sees her future to be, and all of the various different music projects that she has going on. And also very much we want to talk about the new single that's coming out. We're just going to have a great sit down and a great conversation while the porridge is cooking. All right, welcome to a very special day at Purple Powerhouse Productions. We are honored, privileged, and gifted to have one of the most exciting artists I've seen in recent memory, Cariies. Welcome to the show.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you so much, Mark.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for being here. It's amazing to have you. And you're coming all the way from
Boise, Idaho, baby.
Boise, Idaho. This was something I found to be very curious the first time that I had seen you and heard about that. Tell me a bit about the music scene in Boise, Idaho.
I mean, obviously, Boise is definitely a smaller city. I mean, it is the capital of Idaho, but nonetheless, I'm trying to remember what the census number is. Anyways, even though it's a relatively small city, I gotta say it does honestly have a very lush, I guess, spectrum to all different genres that play here. I mean, there's a lot of independent artists, and they all range between like pop punk or rap, R&B. There's a little bit of a reggae, obviously. And for the most part, I've noticed there's a lot of like metal bands or like classic rock bands, which I love. I always love just sticking to the classics. But yeah, it's really cool.
Excellent. Yeah, the first time I had seen you perform, I did not know that you were on the bill. And I feel like for an artist that is one of the hardest things to be tasked with, that you're getting up there um, in a room full of people that either came to drink or came to see a different band. And you have
Mhm.
to somehow figure out a way to connect with these people and to get them to accept you and to listen to what you're talking about, because your music, I mean, you're a phenomenal musician. We're going to get into that, um, what you do with these different instruments, but and the songs are so uh, word driven. There are just a lot of really powerful images that you pronounce certain words. It's the way like a virtuoso guitarist bends a string. I know one of the things that stands out to me was on the Topless Breakfast single was the way you said orange juice. Um, it was just really unique. Like it stood out. It was just really memorable. It was something that stuck to my brain when the song was finished playing. Um,
Oh,
and I mean, just the few songs that you have out so far are just covered with things like that. That these really interesting and unique stamps that you put on these things. Like, how did that originate? At what age did you realize you had these gifts, these musical or uh, literary gifts?
I mean, Man, I'm trying to remember. I think the first song I ever wrote, I was like 9 years old, and it was just a very basic chord progression. And I believe the song was literally about New York, and it was just me saying how much I wanted to go. But I think that that definitely sparked my interest in writing, to say the least. And then I started writing poetry, and then eventually down the line, as I started to really work on my musical abilities, making sure I was proficient in piano and also eventually getting to the point where I was playing ukulele, that's when I started meshing the two together, taking my poetry and figuring out, okay, what melody would suit this piece of work the best. And I guess my main goal whenever I write music is I almost kind of want it to feel like it's a diary entry being sang out loud. It's a very weird feeling. Like it's very strange being that vulnerable, but when it's in a song form, it comes very easily. So I guess that's my main tool for how I write songs and how I kind of make them memorable is it's just a whole piece of vulnerability that I'm just splashing out onto a paper and putting on a track.
And did you ever like see somebody in person or on television or somebody that made you that kind of gave you that jolt in your guts like wow, that's what I want to be doing.
I gotta say, honestly, my brother Matthew really sparked that in me because I remember as a little girl, he and his band, they were a garage band. They would, play, and I remember um hearing some of my brother's originals and initially being like, holy, this is actually like a really, really good song. It's not Britney Spears, but it's a really good song. and, and then eventually seeing my brother actually perform live, it was like one of the only shows that was all ages. So me and my little sister came, and I remember like getting to not only hear his performance, but also to just bear witness to it. I remember it just sparked something in me that was just like, this is so like exciting. And it's so like, it's just giving me that pump of adrenaline. I didn't even know what adrenaline was at the time, but I remember just being like, this is so cool. I want to do this. I want to feel like this every day.
That's awesome. And now look at you.
Yep. It's
That's
my
crazy.
therapy.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I always say that music is medicine. I mean, I think about like anytime I've ever had a panic attack and you have this choice, like you could take some pill that's probably going to make you throw up or put your stomach in knots, and then you wait like a half hour for it to go through your system, and it does who knows what to what knows what in your
Yeah.
body. And yeah, your panic attack is gone while you're hunched over with like a cracked rib from, throwing up for 3 hours. So it's like,
Hmm.
or you could take that same half hour of time and like put on a bunch of Cariies songs and
Oh,
and have that same effect on the panic attack without the stomach being in knots.
for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, I think what really I wanted to ask you about was that so when I first saw you was on uh, a reggae bill, and that was predominantly the vibe of what you were doing with the ukulele.
Hmm.
And I got all your information to follow on the socials. Like, my God, this was just like, what the hell did I just see? This was incredible. Like, again, you get up on this stage, people have no idea who the hell you are. They don't know you're going to be there.
Hmm.
They're doing whatever, paying attention to whatever they're doing. And the next thing you know, like, you got them like waving their hands through the air and like singing along with your songs. And it was just like, you it was like this tornado, this vortex you created, and people were just drawn into it. Like I knew, like, all right, this isn't just you know, some stupid like opener. Like this person is. Whether I like it or not, I'm going to be seeing a lot more of this person uh, in the future. Um,
Oh,
it really, it was incredible. Every time one of these shows comes up, Derek, the man of the forest, offers to put me on the guest list, and I always tell him no. And I said, I want to support my friends while they're on the way up. And I said, it's going to be a very short time before you're playing shows at Red Rocks. And when I can't afford those tickets, you're going to put me on the guest list, please. um,
Exactly. Save it for the
yeah,
big venues.
right. But I'm like, for now, like you're living in a van, dude. I'm paying for my ticket, like thank you. But I know it's not glamorous, the life of a struggling musician. So yeah, you buy the stickers, you buy the gear, you do what you can do to help your friends live those dreams. But
Well,
me, like I felt like I snuck into something. I mean, you owned you owned that room. I mean, you could have told those people to do anything, and I mean, they were just in the palm of your hand. It was
oh,
amazing. You just really put on an incredible show. I made sure that second night to get there super early, to make sure that I didn't miss that.
and we
But
had an excellent conversation beforehand, and it was beautiful.
yeah, yeah, that really again just stood out. And I just think about that. Again, like you're in this room full of people, but after that set, I mean, like everybody wanted to talk to you, and you're just like sitting at this table with me, like we're two old friends, like having a chat. I thought it was like the coolest thing ever, and I felt like a selfish prick because I was
Oh,
like, I'm like, I'm I'm keeping her away from like this old crowd of people that were like, it's like I'm honored, but get out there, man. Like get get your name out there. Like these people are like these are the fans that are gonna be. You already got me. Like I'm already, go get some more. Like that's kind of how I was thinking of it, and I was really blown away by um just your kindness, just how giving you were. Not again, you talk about the vulnerability in the lyrics, but it comes through in every other aspect. The show in Pueblo, I spoke to you just as a person in this bar before. Again, I didn't even know there was an opener to this show. I was talking to Derek, and you came over, and it was it was just a normal conversation. And then you're like, "Excuse me," and you got up and just kicked everybody's ass. It was,
uh,
yeah.
it was just so fun. I seriously think about the Wolfolific tour at least once a day. It's kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, it's like that was just such a cool experience, not just because of the obvious fact that I'm getting to do what I love just day after day, but it's also, the people that you meet. It's just mind-boggling, and I really got to say, like, the more people that I meet, especially in the case with you, it feels truly like an honor to not only have that presence, but then to have a conversation and to hear the the different perspective and the different wisdoms that you've picked up in your life, and then exchanging those wisdoms. It's truly powerful, and it sticks with you. Those memories, at least for me personally, they stay always within the forefront of my mind.
And I mean, they should. That's what you need to clutch when you're in those moments where like, "God damn, Spotify is ripping me off," and I just need to take a piss, and these fans are screaming at me to take a selfie, and I just need. That's what you should think about. Like, there are people that aren't going to necessarily appreciate the gifts that
you
you
know
are
every
sharing, but know that
Absolutely.
you are appreciated and valued, and that uh, truly a gift to the world. I mean, like people's entire moods were completely transformed uh, for the better between the moment you got up on that stage and the moment you stepped off of it. And there are a handful of people in the world that have that power. Um, and some of the few that do, it goes straight to their head. And again, there you were, just sitting at a table talking to me. Just it was incredible. I mean, I really, when I saw the videos of you performing it closer to the sun, my reaction was, "Yup, of course, yeah." Like, yeah.
Oh shit, that was crazy. I don't think I'll ever get over that.
So, how many closer to the suns have you been to so far?
This last one was my 5th year, so I got my robe, which is dope.
Oh, they give you a
And
robe now.
yeah, the running joke is it's a $10,000 robe because that's how much money you've invested thus far. It's a worthy investment, by the way.
Uh,
Best investment I ever made in my entire fucking life.
so, what year was your first year?
My first year was 2018. So my brother-in-law, my sister had gone to 2017 and they came
Mm.
back and they were saying like, "Oh my God, Carrie, like you need to go. You need to give this a try." And I was like, "I'm not traveling to a different country and spending X amount of money. Like I can't do that. I'm a hostess at a barbecue restaurant for Christ's sakes." But my sister was like, just do it once. If you decide it's not your thing, you don't have to go again, but just give it a try. Best fucking decision ever. I know this might sound crazy to some people, but truly going to Closer to the Sun did definitely serve as a major pivotal moment in my choice to finally just pursue music. Because at that point, I'd been so crippled by, the relentless anxiety that came with like, oh, like you're never actually gonna like pop off. Like there's a million people who want the same thing as you. Like you're no different than anybody else, which is true. But like when you actually start to just go for it and you're like, what's the worst that can happen? I fail. Oh well, plan B, move on to the next. Once you get past that initial fear and you just go for it, it will boggle your mind what you are not only capable, but what the universe is capable of giving to you as well. Best decision ever.
Yeah, yeah, it has that impact for sure, life altering. It was interesting. My first one was 2016, which was
Mm-hmm.
that was the second closer to the sun ever.
Yeah.
So they were still kind of working out the bugs. It was still at the smaller resort. They hadn't yet moved it to the Hard Rock. And I remember
That's
getting
nice.
there, and my wife and I, we were die-hard Dirty Heads fans. And even though this thing was like put together by Slightly Stupid, there was like a contingent of people that were more there to see the Dirty Heads. That they were on the come up at that moment. It was happening for them.
Yeah.
And we had connected with some people. It was like really cool. It was really intimate. I think it was called the Sapphire, if I'm not mistaken, that resort. And
Yep.
it had a smaller, more intimate feel. Than we weren't able to go the following year, which was 17. And then we went again in 18, which would now be the fourth year,
Mm-hmm.
our second. And something weird happened. It like it felt like sort of cliques had started to form of like this hierarchy of people that kind of felt like they were superior because like, whoa, how many have you been to? And it wasn't
The doleful.
right. It wasn't like it was like we're there for the music, what's happening. It was weird. And after that, they had just started that the Cali Roots Festival. Um,
Right. Oh yeah, you're right. Holy shit.
that was yeah. This will be the third year. This will be the first year I can't go 'cause I'm going to Costa Rica. But so yeah, it's a
Not a
fair,
bad alternative.
yes, a fair trade. But yeah, at that point it was like, wait a minute. I mean, it was cool to be at an all inclusive, but it was also cool to be in Long Beach. We walked to the Sublime mural, and it was super cool. But that first closer to the sun we were at, we had just got in. The transfer drove us from the airport to the resort. We
Mhm.
drop our bags at the room. We're just like walking around, like getting acquainted with where everything is, at the resort. And we see like this small crowd like coming toward us, and they're surrounding this dude, and he's one of the singers from Slightly Stupid. And my wife and I are talking to each other, like, oh, well, he's there with his friends, leave him alone, like, give the person their space, privacy.
Yeah.
And he tells his friends, like, wait, and he walks away from them out of his way to us. And he's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "we didn't write a set list yet. Like, let us know if there's any songs you want us to play." And like, here we are, like trying to be respectful. And he comes out of his way to speak to us. And the same thing happened. Like the next morning, we were eating breakfast at a buffet, and we see at the table next to us uh, is the band, Slightly Stupid. And again, same thing. We're kind of like, all right, like kind of like shying away, like they're eating breakfast, like, should we ask for a picture? Like, no, they're eating their breakfast. Leave them alone. They're human beings.
Mhm.
And then while we're having this conversation, we look up and the dude from Slightly Stupid is sitting at our table. And and we tell him, we're like, man, we were trying to be cool, and not, get all up in your mix. And he's like, this is the reason why we do this. He's like, you're paying for us to be on vacation with our families and all inclusive in Mexico. He's like, we want to meet the people who allow us to live this dream. So I think it's pretty amazing that you're cognizant of that. You are definitely on that path. I mean, it's just a runaway train. I can't see any other alternative. I mean, how long has this taken you, like to get this ball rolling to the point where, I mean, now you're in a successful band, you have a solo career that's thriving, you're firing these singles out like a machine gun.
Well, thank you. I mean, I truly my musical journey has spanned through my whole life. I mean, I was sang to in the womb, and the first public performance I did outside of church, because I grew up in the Mormon church, um, was in a little group called Broadway Beaters. It was a bunch of us little girls, and I sang "You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile" with another young girl, and it was a lot of fun. And then I think that definitely made me aware that it was like, I really like this thrill that I get when I perform. Like, yes, it's a little intimidating, but I love this thrill. I want to like feel this as often as possible. And then I did musical theater in high school, so I got a chance to like feel out performing while doing that. And then, like I said, after high school, I went through a period of like 2 or 3 years where I just was overwhelmingly engulfed in fear, and I knew that I wanted to do music, but like I said, my own fears and my own insecurities were telling me like, don't even bother, like don't even shoot your shot, honey. It's not in the cards for you. It's never going to go anywhere. You're not going to set a precedent by any means. But then I remember on my 21st birthday, actually, I kind of had a heart to heart slash kind of mental slap with myself where I was like, okay, you've been spending the last 3 years just so engulfed in fear, so depressed. What are you going to do? Are you going to completely give up on life as a whole? Or are you going to choose to start doing what makes you happy? Do the thing that you love, even if it doesn't pan out exactly how you hope it would. But just when I finally made that decision and I stopped being, letting my life be dictated by my own fear, that's when I fell back in love with just performing and just putting my music out there, even though I knew that it was a big choice to make and it was a big, I guess, leap of faith, if you will. I just knew that it was what I love to do, and it made me so happy, and it made me feel like I had a purpose, which was a big deal. So I stuck to it, and just sticking to it, I've been presented with so many awesome opportunities. I met so many incredible people, and I'm just rolling with it, man.
That's great. I mean, that was the same advice, actually. One of my favorite musical artists is King Buzzo of the Melvins. And in an interview, he was asked what advice he would give to a young up and coming band. And he said, don't ever break up. It's like you're gonna hate each other's guts, you're gonna fight. Just work it out. Don't ever break up. Just stick with it. Do what you have to do and just keep it going. Um,
Mhm.
and eventually, uh, like it or not, you're going to get good at it, and you will find success eventually if you stick with it. And there
Hmm.
have been a few different iterations of the Melvins, but but he's always been a constant, and I mean it's still going now, which is pretty crazy. But it's true. I mean that kind of stick to itiveness. But I think what you've tapped into now, and when I speak so confidently about what I see as your prospects or what I think is about to happen in your career is based on this pattern. Right? When I listen to this music for many years, I to date myself, I graduated high school in '93. So uh, after that is when Sublime really started to rise and then immediately, uh, flamed out, but not before gifting the world with Slightly Stupid,
Yeah.
which kind of carried that torch on. Um, I didn't know that there was this community forming. There were bands that I listened to, but I didn't realize that, when you went to see one band, you would see these same other two bands open up that you saw at the last show because things were starting to, a scene was forming. It wasn't just these random different artists, and these people all kind of hung out with each other. That's how it was in the Seattle grunge scene in the late 80s and early 90s before it really blew up. Like these guys just hung out together. There was no rivalry. They knew each other.
Yeah.
Um, and they would pop up on each other's albums. And that's just how it was because they recorded in the same studio or they lived in the same apartment building. And then that's kind of what was happening. I did not realize it until I want to say it was 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And this was when Sublime with Rome had toured for the first time. They originally tried to just tour as Sublime, and the Knoll family had threatened to sue that they couldn't tour as Sublime without Bradley. And so
Yeah.
that's when they changed the name to Sublime with Rome. And I had heard some of Rome Ramirez's music, and I was really impressed and wanted to check it out. I said, if anybody can carry the torch on, it would be him, even though he's so young, but he's so poised and talented. Uh,
Yeah.
and I needed to go. Um, and I went, and the first band that was on was Ozo Motley. I had actually seen them perform before. But the second band was a band I had never heard of before called the Dirty Heads. And it was incredible. Uh, this was so incredible, and this was the time when people still bought CDs because iPods were like $1,000. And I went to Best Buy to buy this CD the next day, and it had like 28 tracks on it or something obscene like that. And
Ooh.
so there were a ton of great songs, but I think there's a difference between a collection of great songs versus a great album.
Yeah.
Um, Being that a great album, each song builds upon uh, the next or the previous, I should say.
Yeah.
Each song prepares you for the next one, mood wise, um, versus just taking every song you got and throwing it on, one LP and saying, here it is, not quite the same, even though I love that album. But their second album was a masterpiece. And that's what I wanted to touch on
Hmm.
with you is that I'm trying to figure you out as an artist, but there are like 6 singles out. Um, and each one of them in style and genre is so drastically different. I think when I left the two shows that I had seen you at, I was expecting to look you up and find a reggae artist.
Hmm.
Um, and when I listened to this music, there were songs that didn't even necessarily have that reggae vibe to them. It was still just amazing. I mean, and your style and just personality just shine through. But again, it's like all six of these songs trying to get a feel of like what kind of direction do you see for yourself? Um, because this is a time right now, after that Dirty Heads show, um, and then learning that there's this band called Stick Figure that I had never heard of, and now all of a sudden, it's Iration, and then it's the Elevators, and then it's, you know, you can't help but be introduced to so many different bands because it is now this community. And there are several of them, the Stupid Heads or Stick Fam, and you see these shirts at the shows, and it's almost like a secret handshake because then you go back to work the next day, and nobody else knows who these bands are. But
Yeah.
right, for that one night, they're like the biggest thing on earth. And now I think what's happening is it's been around long enough that I think there is about to be a big wave, like the next generation of artists that carry that torch, like Slightly Stupid did when Sublime ended.
Hmm.
Not that Slightly Stupid is ending, but I think they're definitely going in a new direction. I mean, they went from singing about maybe some lewd subject matter that you know might be normal to write a song about that when you're in your 20s or something, but now they're in their 40s and have kids and aren't maybe thinking about that so much as being at their daughter's softball game, or like life is changing. But another young band like they used to be is going to have to come up, I believe. And this is just my opinion based on what I've seen over the past like 15 years that I've been following these bands. But based on what I've seen, I think the one artist to take that torch as like the number one band in the scene when Slightly Stupid decides, to kind of give it a rest, it's got to be Stick Figure,
Yeah, totally.
right? And then you have what I see as like the queen of the scene, which is Hyrie,
Kyrie.
right? I don't think anybody would even question that. But now you look at the next generation of people that come up, of the next generation, and there is such a vast number of female artists uh, in this scene that I feel are really going to carry it to that next level. And there's more and more of them at every one of these festivals that I go to. And it just keeps building and impressing. And I think you are at that wave as it's just beginning to grow.
Oh, well, thank you. That really means a lot because there is, like you said, no shortage of immensely talented women. I mean, of course, there's so many talented men. We could be here for hours talking about them, but specifically with the women like Logan, Doa Lee, Ellie Mack, Natalie Rise, just Vanalia, of course. These women just blow my mind. And the fact that I get to kind of, like you said, be a part of the wave as it's growing, it's really, really a cool thing to be a part of. And I think the biggest thing that I love so much about the reggae community is that it's like you said, it's this very strange genre in the sense that it's not as cutthroat as I guess other genres would be. Like I feel like in like rap culture, it's very common to like diss other artists on your tracks and stuff like that. But I've never borne witness to any of that taking place in the reggae community, and it's especially nurturing to be able to be a part of this large group of people that are so loving and so diverse. And it's just thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, thank you. Um, th- that's the thing I find again, like they're just the timing is right in the pocket. It seems like there were these other songs and these other styles, like based on what I saw at the two shows I had seen, I just assumed that you were a reggae artist. And
Hmm.
then I hear a song like Iron Giant, and I mean, my jaw was on the floor. That was unbelievable. I mean, in scope, it was just like an opus. It was just this epic feel. And one thing you do in that song that you do in other songs, it's one of those stamps I had referred to earlier. But when you get to that end part and we've taken care of getting all the verses out of the way, and there's almost like these improv parts or where you take it up to this stratosphere, like your range goes up another octave, and um yeah, it again, it's not just it's a real knowledge of how to guide a song emotionally, how to build on it, when to make that jump. I think that's a big difference between there are a lot of vocalists who can do all the runs and hit every note in the stratosphere, but they don't know when to or why to. But when you get to those peaks in your songs, and they usually come right around, I would say the 3:30 to 4 mark. Um, and I'm already here, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's like, oh my God, you went even higher. Um, when it got to that end part, I mean, I'm assuming now you harmonize with yourself
Yes, sir.
and you playing every instrument on these tracks.
Yes, sir.
That's on.
All by me.
And have you ever thought of having like a touring band now that like what would you say when you think about your future in music? Because there's so many different directions you can go in with the range and the different variety of talents that you possess. The band, if you wanted to be a bass player, that could be your area of focus. But if you wanted to focus on your solo career, uh, you've shown a proficiency in like really any style or genre that you decided. I mean, it's pretty incredible to see. But again, for me, of course, I have the personal attachment to that reggae scene, and also, um, despite all of the other things that you do, that was my introduction to you.
Mhm.
I had seen you perform live 2 times before I had heard any of your singles that were released, and even the ones that have been released since. So I knew you as a reggae artist. And then when I heard these other songs, it really kind of threw me for a loop. Like, wow, there's a lot more to this. And again, I was just blown away. But like, what do you think? Do you think of yourself as like a bass player in a band, or do you think of yourself as Carice?
Uh, that's tough because truthfully, me as a bassist and me as a solo artist, and then just me on a daily basis, they feel like three completely different people, honestly. Um, it's a different energy that's brought out of me with each of those different roles, if you will. And as far as like what I see for myself in the future, I definitely would love to have a touring band, and I would love to be able to form my own little group. And I don't really know where to put myself, honestly, as far as genres go, because I know for myself, I like a lot of different genres. So I kind of get inspiration from all those different sounds. And it's kind of hard to just stick to one because it's just a matter of like when I'm writing a song or when I'm producing a song, it's just a matter of what am I feeling in this very moment? Like what feels like it's representing me the best in this very moment? Which song, which vibe, which sound? So I don't know. I definitely think I would like to stick to mostly reggae, but here and there maybe throw in a song that sounds a little bit more like the Beatles, or maybe throw a different song out there that sounds like a Nora Jones kind of vibe. It's just guess it's just whatever feels the best at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, whatever best represents what you're feeling or what's in your soul.
hmm
Um, like with Iron Giant, I felt like it had this huge symphonic, like cinematic feel. Like, was it inspired by the movie?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, I remember rewatching The Iron Giant just a ton, and it made me cry every single time. And it just brought back this part of me. It made me feel like I was a child again. And then that kind of sparked this realization within me of like, I think I need to get back in touch with my inner child. And then I sat down one day at the piano and I started just fucking around, kind of just playing different melodies. And then one in particular stuck with me that eventually became Iron Giant the song. And like I said, that movie was just at the forefront of my mind. And I was just really thinking deeply about like, as we grow up and as we get older, we definitely get so caught up with responsibilities and, being so caught up with like, who am I representing myself as? And then um, you kind of have to remind yourself, get back to the basics. What makes you happy? What makes you feel alive? Like, why are you putting on this heavy armor when you could just take it off and just feel, vulnerable again, feel like a child again? I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's just the best way I can kind of encapsulate the experience of writing that song.
I mean, it was beautiful. I heard it. I was like, I don't remember this from the movie. This must have been like she couldn't have written this. This is like this had to be like in the movie. And yeah, I mean that was a huge moment. And I mean to just to see the scope of your abilities expand beyond anything or my assumptions. I was just blown away by it. And I mean yeah, it got me emotional too. Um
Oh.
but all the different songs and the different styles they all express something else, but and all of them are accessible, so you kind of touch into that empathy aspect. You're able to connect to those emotions that I think we all feel, and we can relate to the way you present it in the songs. But I think it helps that you're able to do so many different things, um, that you can literally explore your creativity in any direction and not be limited by like, oh, well, my voice can't go that high or my fingers can't move that fast, or like you have all of these tools. Uh, and it's just amazing. I mean, to listen to these songs and then all these different things like that, the Iron Giant being like really heavy and emotional and serious, and then to have it be on a song like Topless Breakfast. Um, so on my streamer, I look up the artist, and so I say play Carice instead of play the songs, and then it just shuffles anything that you've put out there. So I never know, but it always like runs me through the gamut of all these different emotions. I thought that was such a fun song. It was such a romantic song, and it just really uh it was so much fun, and it was sensual, and it was relatable. I mean, it was just cool. Like you can imagine those kind of mornings, it's
Yeah.
that was really great. I think it's a feeling like that we all cherish, and that I don't really recall like too many songs about it, at least not in my library.
I still have yet to find another song that talks about specifically a topless breakfast, but I've got to imagine there's at least one song out there, one other song, forgive me, that has that premise. But yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just getting buttered up over here.
Well, you deserve it. I mean, it's great. And that's the thing, is that you get up on a stage and you present yourself to everybody else, and a lot of people, they just want to take. Um, they'll get an autograph and then put it up on eBay. It's not even like I want an autograph as a memento of this interaction. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I want an autograph so I could sell it to somebody for, $200. And there are people like that. That's unfortunate, there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's very important that you as an artist are exposed to people that really get what you do and people that are picking up what you're putting down and are accepting of the gifts that you're giving and are appreciating you and giving that energy back because a lot of people just want to take it. Um, and again, that was the thing that stuck out with me. Um, it, the conversations that I had with you were real human connections. It wasn't patronizing. It wasn't like you were talking to me because I bought a shirt or something. It was like we were just talking. It was real. It was genuine, and you carry power, and
Oh,
I think it's pretty awesome that you wield it in the way that you do. You put yourself on a position to be able to share those gifts with so many people because it does have a profound impact. But you're going to encounter that negativity. It's an ugly
for
industry.
sure.
It's a very ugly industry. Um, and I think it's easy for people to forget some of those positive parts of it sometimes when you get exposed to the negative parts of it. And then the
For
fans
sure.
get creepy too. They take it maybe too far sometimes. Um,
I've had my ponytail yanked at a show before. That
yeah.
was
So yes.
intense.
um, yeah, so the good fans don't do stuff like that, and they're out there. So it's good that you allow yourself to receive that, to hear those messages of appreciation, and that what you're putting out there is being received, even if not by everybody. Um, you know, we've all been to shows where there's like, oh God, look at this jerk, he drank too much or whatever, it's like we see it at our own things that we go to. It's like our own family, our own community. Like, oh, come on, be better. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I just watched a room full of people become fans of yours instantly, and I thought it was pretty awesome. Um, the the trajectory of your music. I mean, like Island Boy has that vibe to it. I mean, again, that was like just another like fun song. You really kind of hit that wheelhouse with those like romantic songs that they're sexy without being lewd and um again just dialing into a very specific emotion that uh people can relate to and is pleasurable. Where did that come from?
Where did Island Boy specifically come from?
Yeah.
Ah, man. I did write it about a specific person who I was seeing at the time. And I guess yeah, I don't know. I guess I just was thinking about that person really heavily, and then I was like, it's almost like I had a picture of them in my mind, and then I was just like, you know how on a phone you could zoom in on a picture? I was just
Mhm.
zooming in on all those like tiny little details about them that stick out, whether it's like the couple freckles on their cheek or the way their hands kind of move when they're playing the guitar. I don't know, I just was thinking about all those different components about that particular person, and it kind of took me to a place of not even necessarily romance, but just like this um, great appreciation for all those little qualities about them that make them who they are. And then I just took all those different components, I put it into a poetic form, and the song just came to be.
It was very uke heavy.
For sure, yeah. That was, I think, one of the yeah, that was the first, yeah, ukulele song I ever like really put out there. And yeah.
So I've talked to artists who maybe some have been introduced to an instrument. I think maybe the most famous example is the Van Halen brothers. Um, so when they were kids, Eddie was the drummer and Alex was the guitar player.
I
And
never knew.
yeah, so Eddie was trying to play the song Wipeout, and he could not do it, and he got very upset and frustrated. And he said, F this, I'm not playing the drums anymore. And he picked up Alex's guitar. And when Alex got home, and he said, I'm the guitar player now. And Alex said, okay, I'll play the drums. Um, and the both of them became like, the premier people in their field of their time, which is pretty amazing. So I know for some artists, sometimes not necessarily early in their musical careers, they might be introduced to a new instrument, a new way to express themselves, or a new genre in some way, and it really alters their trajectory as an artist. Do you feel like when did you start playing the ukulele? Since this song was the first one you say you put out that had the ukulele in it, and
Mhm.
this was in 2022.
Yep.
So,
It's
when did you start playing the ukulele, and has it changed the way you approach songs? Because pretty much everything I saw you play when I saw you live was on the ukulele.
I started playing the ukulele when I was 16 years old. My dad came home and he had a $50 ukulele that he got from a pawn shop, and he was like, "Here, give this a try." And I was like, "Okay." So I started looking up like uke tabs and also kind of just feeling out, or I guess like learning songs, listening to them, and then kind of translating them to the notes on the ukulele. And then from there, I I kind of that's when I started getting into reggae. Well, actually, I didn't really get into reggae until like 2018, but the fact that I had already been playing ukulele for 2 years at that point, and I kind of had at least enough of an understanding of how to play various chords. And then I eventually got introduced to reggae. That definitely served as a moment where I was like, I can now use the ukulele to start writing more reggae style tunes. And it just was history from there.
All right, and so since that, you've done more.
Absolutely, yeah. Ukulele has now become, I guess, the prominent instrument you'll see me playing at a lot of live shows. Truth be told, I don't really have many original piano songs, and I that's why I stick mostly to ukulele because most of my songs now do revolve around that main instrument. So I would like to start doing more reggae tunes that incorporate more piano. In fact, I thought it would be really cool to do a full reggae sounding song, but it's everything is played on the piano.
So is that where this all started for you? What, like, before the ukulele, what instruments did you play?
The first instrument I played was piano, and we grew up with a piano in my house, so it was always there, and I always fiddled around with it. But it wasn't until I was around 5 or 6 that I was like, I want to actually know how to play this. So I attempted taking piano lessons from my sister, but I just could not, for the life of me, make it register in my brain like how to read music, how to sight read. So I was like, okay, well, what's the next approach? If this doesn't work, then what will? And then I started listening to songs repeatedly, and then I would find the starting note on the piano, and then I started eventually teaching myself chords, and it just built up and built up over time to where now every single song I play on the piano is completely by ear. I cannot sight read for my life.
And what about the pipes? Like, when did you start singing? I mean, your voice sounds like professionally trained.
This is gonna sound like such a cliche, but I've been singing ever since I could utter words. And I just religiously watched Disney movies, and that's where I started to kind of, I guess, take inspiration from
like how do these women make that vibrato? How do they carry out such high notes but not make them sound shrill? So it was just a matter of like with listening to all these different women artists or Disney characters and really cluing into how they made their voice work. And of course, when I was in high school, I said I did a little bit of musical theater, and that really cemented what knowledge I do have about like breast support, really utilizing the diaphragm to make those big belts. But truly, it's just been, 23 years of just listening to various different voices and then also listening to different tips that professional, voice why am I blanking on the word? Professional
Coach.
singers.
Mm.
Yeah. Professional singers, they would do these little videos of like, instead of doing this, do that. It was just accumulation of taking in all that information and then learning how to apply it to my voice. And there were definitely it was a lot of trial and error. Let's say I lost my voice a handful of times
Mm.
because of my own bad habits.
Yeah, it's an instrument for sure. So I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in the hair metal era, so it's interesting to see that some of these bands are actually like still at it. I got tickets to see Iron Maiden in October, and Bruce Dickinson can still hit those notes like operatically while running around the stage like a maniac. And this man, I think he's got to be like pushing 70. If you take care of your machine, it takes care of you. Um, I saw Judas Priest, um, and yeah, he is in his 70s. Came out on the stage on a motorcycle. He's still belting it out. He's still hitting those notes. Same with Sammy Hagar. And these are people that they sang that really kind of guttural, raspy tone when they were young. And, people would say, oh, when you get older, your vocal cords are going to be shredded wheat and you're not going to be able to do it anymore. And they're doing it in their 70s still. And yet, some, some of them, it's painful to watch, but it
Yeah.
it does go to show, like, if you treat your voice well, um, it'll be good to you back. And it sounds like you're doing all the right things, like technique wise. Um,
I could definitely still learn a lot more, but I try. I try to take care of her as best as I can.
that's good. I mean, I feel like everything's accessible now too, online even.
Oh yeah, we are a lucky generation to have the technology that we do. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, of course, but it truly is amazing how accessible, especially like recording software is now. Because I remember back in, the 80s, bands like Motley Crue, for example, they had to play a bunch of shows at all these different places, and then eventually a label would come to them or a recorder and be like, yo, I wanna make an album with you guys. Like that was the only way you could get music out publicly. And now it's like you got platforms like DistroKid. DistroKid is the shit. And it allows all these independent artists to put their work out, and it just broadens the horizons way more than, they used to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, what the current generation has done is they've killed the gatekeepers. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the way it used to be. For people of my age growing up, when I was in rock bands, it was always like, oh, we're gonna make it. That was the thing, to make it. And what we meant by make it was exactly what you said, like to pimp ourselves out to some record label, get signed to a deal. And then,
Mm-hmm.
you get older in life, and you know what? I'm very happy and fortunate to say a couple of my friends from back in the day did make it.
That's
But when
amazing.
but when they made it, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. I mean, it was a shark-infested sea, and there were liars and horrible people with nefarious agendas. And this deal that they dreamed of getting, this record deal, was actually uh, a predatory loan like they didn't know they had to pay for the Pepsi out of the vending machine in the recording studio. They didn't. And then all of a sudden, they feel like they got $1 million because it was in advance. And then
Yeah.
the bill comes in the mail, and it's like, wait a minute, this isn't a dream. This is a nightmare. And so like you kind of see that kind of seedy underbelly of the industry. And yet a lot of people of that old guard will lament that kind of dinosaur aspect of um, the music industry. How this the age of the singles and the Spotify and the streaming services, and are killing the music industry. And it's almost like maybe these people shouldn't have been millionaires or multimillionaires. um, maybe that's not the role of the musician in society.
Yeah.
Maybe these are things that more seek to separate you from people and to cut you off from those gifts of being able to relate to the very people that you have to relate to in order to be successful in what you do.
Amen.
Um, I think that when uh, you had said before, life is a blessing and a curse, and I thought that was a perfect segue to talk about what I think maybe with Iron Giant, just because of that epic cinematic feel of Iron Giant. But I feel like This Is Life is like that is your moment. I feel like that is just a song where you put it all out there on Front Street. And uh, there's so many things about this song that just give me a jolt. But one of the things that I'm just going to point out, and then pass it off to you to please offer as many insights about this song and the process of writing it as you can. But what really took me about this song was how many syllables you were able to pack, and yet your enunciation is perfect. It's crystal clear. I can know, even though you're running a mile a minute, you're getting every syllable out there, and I understand it. I can hear everything. And because I'm hearing it as like somebody who studies writing, like you got the right number of syllables, and the pentameter is spot on. And it's like, but then of course the content of this, um again, I think you touched on uh it's such a profound observation about what it is uh to be alive, and how beautiful and how ugly, and all of those extremes. And yeah, please, and anything you have to say about this. I think that this song was just an absolute I mean, this was a home run. This was like a masterpiece for you. I could see this being like when you do like a set on a gig, this could be like a closer. Like, and people will walk out being like, whoa, whoa, you know, like, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So please, I'm sorry you had to listen to me flap my gums for all that time.
Oh my God, do not apologize. Seriously, this is an awesome conversation. And first of all, thank you again so much for the the observations that you made on the song, and especially even just for listening to the song. That really does mean a lot. Um, when I wrote This Is Life, it was during a time, it was actually the beginning of last year, and I had just gone through a breakup, and it seemed like not only my life was a current mess at that point, but also it seemed like from what I was seeing on social media and also from what I was hearing from my personal friends, it just seemed like everybody was just going through the shitter at that point. And I found myself one day just rambling off literally out loud to myself. I was just like, oh my God, like, why are we even here? What is the purpose of all of this? Like, I know we're all like meant to be here. We all have a purpose, but like, why do we all have to fall subject to this crazy fucking experience that we're all living? And then I found myself just being like, well, Carrie, that's life. This is the whole point of life. Some moments you're gonna go through the greatest memories of your life, and other minutes it's gonna feel like you're getting a hot turd for dinner every single night. but that's I feel like that is just what life is. It's an experience. And I feel like when I wrote the song, I just wanted it to be a song that when people listen to it, they could be like, yeah, yeah, oh hell yeah, just like really relating to it. And like um it makes my day when so many people, and like oh wow, I'm gonna sound like I'm making myself a big deal, but literally the amount of people who have messaged me or come up to me in person and been like, this is life, is just so profound. Like it really just sticks with me. And I feel like it's a universal experience that makes my whole life complete, because when I wrote that song, that was my goal. I wanted it to be a song that people could listen to in the heat of a really crappy moment in life and just be like, you know what? It's going to be okay. It's going to suck for right now. This too shall pass. It's going to pass like a kidney stone, but it's going to pass. And we're all going to get through it. And in the meantime, maybe this song can just pacify the experience, maybe just by a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, again, this is how I define what it means to be a successful artist. It's about your ability to tap into those emotions of that experience. Like this, what really struck me about this song is listening to it musically from, say, like a genre standpoint. It's kind of like this like upbeat uh kind of song. It's got a happy vibe to it, but
Mm-hmm.
you're able to kind of thread this needle, or you're on this tightrope where you're able to convey that rage and that anger that I think we all feel, that frustration sometimes that comes with, you know, being a person in this world and at this time, and what we lived through and what we're living through still, and how the hits just keep on coming, and there's never a rest from it, and yet you put this thing out there that provides like just a few short minutes of a respite from that anguish. And yeah, it's not about a deal or a contract. To be successful is to do what you did with that song. um so I really am humbled by the fact that you're here, and I think it's amazing. It's amazing to have the opportunity to pick the brain of an artist about art that has really had a profound impact on my soul. So I mean, this is absolutely incredible. I mean, what a gift to get this deep dive as you go in, and I have to say now, of course, I have to ask you, because I have a history with Derek, the man of the forest. Waldman is a friend of mine. So when I speak of him, I must disclose I am completely and totally biased. I, I love him very much, and I will always lean towards saying that he is great and singing his praises. That is how I was introduced to Cariies, actually, to follow Derek on a pair of shows that he was playing with Olympic, not even knowing that there was an opener by the name of Cariies. And so that was when I saw you, and you played a song that was a dedication to my good friend, Man of the Forest. How did this come to pass? Like, it was this. So you went to Closer to the Sun for the first time in 2018. This is correct?
Yes, sir.
And yes, it was kind of reluctant. You had to get your arm twisted.
Say Sorry, can you repeat the question? I
So
apologize.
you were a little bit reluctant to go to Closer to the Sun, but you were like, oh, okay, I'll go. But you weren't like a
Mhm.
diehard, oh, like, oh, I need to go to see these bands. This was kind of just a thing you were wanted to do.
Yeah, I was very reluctant just because number one, I'd never traveled outside of the country except for when we drove over the border to Canada, which I don't really think counts. But it was not only that, but it was also the fact of like I don't really know anybody there except my brother-in-law and my sister. Like I don't want to just be leeched onto them the whole time. And I was only 20 at the time too, so I was like, are there even gonna like be people my age? Like I was very, very reluctant.
Okay, so you went there, and then this was like a big kind of moment for you. Like this was like an your big introduction, not only to this type of music, but to the idea that like this community existed. Like it was almost like so again, because I'm old. For me, what what really came to define this were the Deadheads, the people that had formed a traveling community that followed the Grateful Dead around from city to city, coast to coast, and they called themselves the Deadheads. Um, and I actually saw the Grateful Dead while Jerry was still alive. Um, and
Oh my God.
fun fact on this, Sting was the opening act, which was this was at the Meadowlands in New Jersey. But a whole different story for a different day. So we have seen over the years, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but again, just because of me and how old I am, that's the first I knew of this idea of like a community like forming around bands. For me, it started with the Dead, and then when Jerry died, and the Grateful Dead, had their divorce, where it became like three different bands of like whatever that was, and they had their fans, and then you had the Parrot Heads who all followed Jimmy Buffett around, and you had the Hazelnuts who followed Sister Hazel around, and of course the Kiss Army, and you had these certain communities that formed where now you go to a show and you start to see the same people there that you recognize them from the last show, right? It's like this kind of like this traveling caravan. And so
Yeah.
you learn that this community exists, and this music has affected you to the point where like now again you have the gifts and the knowledge and the ability to make this happen. You can do whatever you want. You can be an artist of any genre that you choose to be based on your abilities. It's really
Mhm.
whatever you decide to do is a thing. So what happens here? How do you get connected to these people now that you've discovered this new thing? Now it seems like you're dialed in with like how do you meet the people that would eventually lead you to where you are now, like touring with these artists that you've gone to see?
Really, I think it all really began in 2019 at Closer to the Sun. This was at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It was late. And this was like the last day of the festival. So everybody is, of course, sunburnt, tired. We've all had our hoorahs at the shows. We've seen so many great artists. But the weekend kind of got, I guess, ended with a small group of us initially deciding to go and meet at Eden Beach. And I brought my ukulele because I was like, okay, maybe there's a chance I'll get to jam out with somebody. Who knows? And Derek was among that group, and he had brought his violin. And I started, just playing tunes really quietly. And it was Dan Kelly, actually, who was just like, hold on. Come over here. I'm going to run up. I'm going to get my guitar. You stay here. You keep playing. And then me and Derek started playing together. And then it was this gradual, like different artists like K-Bong, Brett Wilson, Dan Kelly. It was just this whole group of us just forming on the steps of Eden Beach. And this small group of people eventually grew and grew to where there was like hundreds of us on Eden Beach, and we were all just singing tunes. And that night truly did kind of establish what are now some of the most important relationships that I have in the music community, the most important friendships, I should say, especially. But that's how Derek and I first connected, and we've just stayed in contact ever since. We kept really close touch on social media and just building each other up with all the uh different chances that we were getting, and it's just progressed to where it is now. It's crazy.
That's great. So the song, is it a tribute to him, or is that just a coincidence that that's the title and that's the name that he goes by?
Well, that song came to be because I had gone through a brief period of time where I was like, maybe I should pick a different career path. And I don't know how. I think maybe I posted like some kind of cryptic message on my Instagram story, basically being like, maybe it's time to give up on this dream. Derek was like, here's my number. I need you to call me immediately. So I called him. We sat on the phone for like an hour and a half. And the whole gist of the conversation was like, Carrie, you've only devoted, at the time it was, I think, 3 years into your music dream. Maybe you can consider giving up in another 7. Give it 10 years. Just work your ass off for the next 10 years. Put your heart and soul into it because you love it and you know that it's what you want to do. So just give it a chance. And I had the conversation in my car, and I remember sitting in my car for another 20 minutes after we disconnected. And I just was thinking really hard about everything he had just said and really processing it. And I just felt so inclined to put it down into song form. And now it's so crazy. When you saw me for the first time in Pueblo, that was, I think, the first night Derek and I played that song together publicly. And
Wow.
it was so magical. I remember I cried. Actually, I went outside the venue and I had a couple minutes of just crying because I was like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe how lucky I am to know this guy. And now this song that I wrote about him, we're playing together. Like, are you kidding me? This is insane.
That was great. And again, it was just like I think there's a world of difference. I'm a drummer, or I've been a drummer, self-taught anyway, but been in a number of bands, played with a number of people. And the thing about growing up and all the different people that I've played with is you could always tell who, you know, got home from school and then locked themselves in their bedroom and practiced for 6 hours. They
Mm-hmm.
could play any scale and their fingers could move a mile a minute, and they could hear a song once and then play it, note for note.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it was always more fun to play with the kid who got out of school, raised some hell for 3 hours, then got home and locked himself in his room and practiced for 2 hours, then watched movies and TV, cool movies that had an
Yeah.
influence on him, and then went to bed or whatever, right? And even though he might not have had the same technical prowess, he had the life experience. And because I believe that these different instruments are merely a medium, and it's just another language. But if you don't have anything of value to communicate, if you don't have anything to say, it doesn't matter what language you say it in. And I think that that's where I was really just so impressed with how you present this body of work. Um, Now, it's like 6 random songs that convey 6 basically different type of genres and all of these different emotions. And some of the songs that contain multiple emotions within even like the one song. And you really can like do anything. I know you have a new single uh, coming out.
Yes,
Do you want to
sir.
talk about that at all?
Sure, yeah. This newest one, Brave Face, it's a very similar kind of theme to This Is Life, except it specifically kind of refers to going through life while also, you know, dealing with the mental struggles that come with everybody. I mean, I don't even think you really need a medical diagnosis. I think everybody has struggles with mental health, whether it's diagnosed or whether it's not. And I really wanted this song again to be kind of a, a place that people could go that would kind of remind them like, you're not alone in the struggle, first of all. You're definitely not alone. And as difficult as it can make life, it does kind of bestow certain blessings upon you as well, or at least I don't know how to really put it, but like I've come to a point in my life where me personally, I've come to kind of appreciate like who my mental illness makes me to be. And I mean, obviously it doesn't make me who I am, but it does contribute to various different qualities that I choose to exercise on a daily basis. And I just thought that the song would be a sort of a reminder to everybody that as much as mental health can really affect you, you still have the ability to make life beautiful and to put on that brave face and to do the things you love. Nobody can ever take away from you the things that you love. So just go for them.
Excellent. Well, I have the reminder set in my app to make sure that I download it immediately once it's available. Um,
Oh, thanks, man.
of course, yeah. Now, regarding the random nature of your output thus far, um, may I ask if there are any plans for, say, a more focused vision of like an LP or even an EP where we get maybe a collection all at once, or are you happy with more of like this trickle them out one at a time formula?
I think my current plan of action is I want to put out at least 10 singles just to kind of give people almost like I guess a taste of what they can kind of expect. And then I was gonna kind of use my singles and see the performance and see kind of like what do people like the most out of all these different singles that I put out? Because like you said, everything is kind of different in its own way. So I'm kind of using the singles to gauge, what should I aim for when I do put out an EP or an album? Like what topics should I kind of lean towards more? What musical components should I really focus on so that I'm putting out something that I know not only, my original fans will like, but also what's something I can put out that will then speak to even more people and kind of reel in and not reel in. I'm not going fishing, guys. I'm just, what can I put out that will appeal to even more people? What can make them feel something?
And so, what about thus far? Is there one song above all others that you get the most feedback about, or that maybe when you play live is a particular highlight of your set?
I gotta say, This Is Life is probably the one that I feel like most people at least have voiced to me that they appreciate, which makes me very, very happy because that's a song I genuinely had a lot of fun recording and producing, which says a lot because even though it's a fun process in a lot of ways, it's a pain in the ass, to say the
Yeah,
least. It's a worthy pain in the ass, but nonetheless.
sure. And how do you, I mean, that's got to be really daunting live. Again, as I touched on before, the sheer number of syllables and the amount of words that you're able to squeeze in and get them in not only in key and on pitch, but with the beat. It's percussive. Your vocal delivery is percussive in that song. And so you really have to hit those notes. Now, if you mess that up on, when you're doing it on Pro Tools or whatever, you can always kind of edit that. But when you're playing something like that live, what do you do to make sure you have that air in your lungs to be able to pull that off?
Um, I guess the big thing when I'm singing that song, I typically tend to keep my eyes closed because I just find I'm when I'm stimulated visually and I'm trying to like look at everybody and I'm also trying to keep track of the rhythm and making sure that I'm really enunciating each of the words, it can get a little bit difficult. So I guess that's why I kind of tend to shut my eyes. And that's definitely been, I guess, the main go-to hack for how I'm able to fire off those words as quickly as I do. And I'm glad to hear that I'm able to enunciate them well enough because sometimes I worry that I sound like I'm just going.
You know, I feel like a lot of times I go to shows and when a band comes on that I didn't know was going to be there, or they're not the band I went to see, they just are there. I don't care. I'm going to go get a taco. I want to, I came to see this other band and now this is just who I have to sit through in order to do what I wanted to do in the first place. And, I mean, I think that's the thing is that to be able to, to come in and do that. Um, I think the next step for you, I mean, if you keep at this thing and keep at that, what is coming up for you? I know now it's I look out my window and there's still ice and snow in my streets, but the way I get through it is by getting on my maps and YouTube and routing different trips I might take when I can get back in the saddle again. But like, what about you? It seems like the ball is really rolling for you. What is your summer starting to take shape as far as like touring with anybody or dates? I know you got California coming up, right?
Yep, I got a California gig in March, which is really exciting. I'm really excited to be hitting the stage with Aaron again and the Irie band. I'm really excited to see them live because I have never seen them live, but they're just awesome. Uh,
Excellent.
but yeah, as far as this year's schedule is shaping out, it's definitely already shaping out for sure. I've been really my agenda's been my best friend, let's say that. I've been trying to figure out like um how to fit into my schedule all these upcoming Sunsmith shows and like different opportunities that we've been presented with. And in the meantime, right now, as the schedule's kind of getting solidified, I'm just making my main focus just working on as many tracks as possible and just getting all the musical content built up so that when things start to get more busy on the performance side of things, I'll still kind of have um this safe full of different songs. Because I mean, I feel you. There's nothing but snow and ice here in Boise right now, so I kind of try to take advantage of the fact that I don't even want to go anywhere right now because it's too cold, and I just lock myself in the studio and just fire away at the tracks.
And so do you have a studio in your home?
I do, yeah. I'm in it right now.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's great. So everything you need. So when we hear all those different instruments, those aren't actually those instruments. Are they instruments or are they the synthesizers?
No, they're real instruments. Except for the drums, I will admit, are produced on my piano. It just has like a preset.
Hmm.
But I'm saving up currently to get one of those special boards that you can put drum beats in because I don't I don't have the abilities to play actual drums. But I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
like to.
I mean, I'm sure you could. It's very much connected to the bass. It's the rhythm section. Well, as you know, as a bass player,
Yeah.
which is another thing. Like that's like, um, I tend to think of it like GI Joes or Barbies, right? So you get these different figures, and their job and their role is kind of defined by the accessories that come in the package. I know, like, again, this is the reason why I kind of get down this time of year is when I'm not riding a bike, because
Yeah.
when the Mark action figure that comes with the helmet and the jacket, that's probably like the best version of myself, you know. But like that's the one that's like hyper vigilant and focused and makes the plans and does all the things that you have to do in order to ride a bike. It brings out those different elements of my character that tend to be missing when that's taken away. And we have like Carice, and that comes with a ukulele and then busts out these reggae tunes. But then uh, on the hook next to it is Carice that comes with the bass guitar and plays in a band, and it's uh, I mean, a more subdued role. At least that's the cliche in the band. Like nobody cares about the drummer because you can't see the drummer because they're hidden behind all the drums. But then the
I
bass,
care about the drummer.
I mean, like audience wise, like the
Yeah.
drummer, and that was of course like the gag in This Is Spinal Tap. That have you seen This Is Spinal Tap?
No, I don't think I have. No, sorry.
Uh, so This Is Spinal Tap was a film. Do you know Rob Reiner?
Oh, absolutely.
So this was one of his first, if not his very first film. It was a mockumentary before mockumentaries were a thing. And it was a mockery of what was happening in the 80s hair band metal scene at the time. And because nobody had done mockumentaries like that before, when real bands like Aerosmith and Kiss like saw this movie, they didn't get the joke. They were highly offended that they're being made fun of. Anyway, good
Yeah.
movie. Spoiler alert. One of the running gags is that in this band, Spinal Tap, uh, they just go through drummers left and right, and nobody really notices, right? But and then of course there's the bass player who doesn't get any of the spotlight either. Like the guitar player would always get a shred solo or something, and the bass player just holds it down, just those grooves that you lay down again, and that is much more along the lines of that reggae vibe.
Thank
Like
you.
I guess the thing that's curious to me is, and because I haven't been and don't want to make any assumptions about a place I've never seen, but is there like a reggae scene in Boise? Like, how do you get introduced to this? Like, after you leave closer to the sun now, do you find that there are other people that you know in your area that listen to these bands, or a venue that would host that type of music?
I mean, it's definitely a very small community here in Boise, Idaho, but the thing about the reggae community here is that even though it's a pretty, our numbers are dwindling, or like we don't have many, the reggae group here is very devoted. Like we come to any and every reggae artist show that rolls into town. And I'd like to think that we definitely bring a fire to the shows because we're just having a good time. And that's the other thing. Even though it's a small group, the devotion and the love is just so powerful and strong that I think it it kind of takes away from how small the group really is. But there's opportunities, there's chances. We've had Hemp Fest here, and that's really brought out all the people who listen to reggae but don't, typically show up at the shows. Like that's the ultimate culmination, in my opinion, of um all the different reggae listeners and appreciators is Reggae Fest or Hemp Fest. Forgive me.
I was there in Seattle many years ago. I went to school in Olympia, Washington. Uh,
Nice.
but yeah, I do love the Pacific Northwest. Um, but I could really take this thing for 10 more hours if we let it go. But I don't want to be disrespectful at all of your time.
No
And
worries.
I
I'm
mean,
having a great time.
all right. Well, you say the word and we'll wrap, but I'm happy to keep going. Um, again, I think the music is just I find it intriguing. I always found that the music that thrives in a particular area is the music that reflects the general vibe of what's going on there. When people look at the Seattle scene, and I tend to refer to that often because I guess that was probably the most significant musical movement of my coming of age years for sure. It was a big shift, because we were old enough to see those days when the music world was dominated by Guns N' Roses and Metallica and, Poison and Warrant and all of these hair metal bands, and then
Yeah.
watch all of those bands get built up to God status. And then these Seattle bands come out and the whole thing like fell to pieces. And it was like this whole we talk about musical communities earlier, and that's exactly what it was. Like the metalheads in school, you knew who the other long hairs were. You'd be outside smoking cigarettes on the handball court or something.
Using a
But
Sharpie to color your fingernails black.
right. But there was like a changing of the guard, and we were there to witness it. So I saw that like in that Seattle music, they called it grunge, but if you listen to all these different bands, they do all sound very different from each other. But
Absolutely.
there is a tone, and you can hear why it's called grunge. There's like a grunginess when you listen to like Mudhoney or Nirvana, or the guitars were out of tune, and it was just like these were kids that grew up in these logging communities, and there was nothing for them to do, and they had this rage and anger, and they got it out through the instrument, but it reflected uh, where they grew up and how that influenced them. So
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting. I mean, again, as somebody, I have no preconceived notions or assumptions about Boise, but I'm just curious how the spark inside of you for this type of music, which is for me, I think of as like a beach vibe. I think of the water, and like, how do you keep that alive? Is that something to do? Is there a water culture there? Are you able to like really feel like, when they talk about, I remember, I grew up on Long Island
Mm-hmm.
and then Washington. So I went on the East Coast and then West Coast. And now I'm in Colorado, right in the middle. And that's a void, always living by the water. And
Yeah.
now being in the